Let's see here. Second. Okay, so hopefully right now you can see both me and the title slide, which says working with the ASU Foundation, an introduction to finding and securing philanthropic funding. Okay, I see your thumbs up. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy to be with you today. Welcome to, as she said, PDW4 team working with the ASU Foundation. Just quick overview of our agenda for today. We're going to start with objectives. I'll introduce myself, talk a little bit about the ASU Foundation, understanding philanthropic funding, how to navigate philanthropic grant making, and then the role of the ASU Foundation. And we'll end with Q&A. And we should have sufficient time at the end for anyone to ask the questions that they might have. So start off with our objectives. We have 3 that we're going to try to accomplish today. So participants will be able to explain the structure of the ASU Foundation and how it's set up to help the university and faculty and staff secure and deploy funding. Identify elements of philanthropic funding, including process, sponsor interest, evaluation criteria, and then describe how ASU Foundation and the Foundation Development Team, which I'll tell you more about in a little bit, can assist in the identification and solicitation of foundation support. So my name is Andrew Nelson. I'm the Senior Director for Foundation Development at the ASU Foundation. A little bit about me. I'm originally from Minnesota. I moved to Phoenix in 2010 with Teach for America. Taught middle school math and science at a charter school on 19th Avenue in Camelback, if you're familiar with the Valley. And while I was doing that, I got my master's in secondary education from the Teachers College at ASU. Moved into some nonprofit consulting, working with charter and district schools around Arizona. While I was doing that, I also got my doctorate in education from the Teachers College at ASU. And when I finished that, I was in a moment of transition where I was trying to figure out what comes next in my career. I could either stay in the K-12 sector, and that's probably where I would have spent the next chunk of my career, or I could pivot, and ASU was my pivot. So I worked on the university side for 5 years. Starting in the Office of University Initiatives, kind of a special projects lab for President Crow. We worked on everything from creating a tech innovation council to creating a scholarship program for Maasai students in Kenya and Tanzania, to designing, building, and running a grant program to increase middle-class families' incomes by 10%, 10,000 middle-class families' incomes by 10%. And then we ran that competition twice. And so through my work, I found myself doing a lot of designing, building, and scaling of social impact projects. And philanthropic funding is a major catalyst for a lot of social impact work. And so I found myself doing a lot of grant writing, a lot of grant management, a lot of grant execution. And so I wanted to take a little foray into fundraising and development. And so I joined the ASU Foundation back in October 2022. So I've been in my role for about 1.5 years. And right now I'm the leader of our foundation development team. Right now I'm a team of me. I had a colleague who left back in January, and we are hiring to backfill for her position. And then we'll be also hiring a few new folks. So looking to grow the team to really scale up the range and types of support that we can offer to the university going after and securing foundation funding. So just a little bit about me. Glad to be here with you today. We're going to start off, and so also I have my just for reference, I have I can pretty well see the chat. So if you want to put a question in the chat throughout this conversation, feel free to do so. If you want to take yourself off mute and interrupt me and ask a question that way, please feel free to do so. I've got a lot of things happening on the monitors, so if I miss it, please just come off mute and let me know what your question is. Otherwise, we'll have time at the end. All right, so I want to start with a quick introduction to the ASU Foundation, because what I found in working with faculty and staff is that some folks don't know kind of how the ASU Foundation is positioned, how it's organized, and how it's then optimized for their support. So you might have seen this diagram before. President Crow uses this often. He used it, I've seen most recently in his kind of State of the Institution report to ABOR, which outlines kind of the 3 main enterprises of the university: the learning enterprise, which, as you know, is everything non-degree. Academic enterprise, which is everything degree-seeking. Knowledge enterprise, which is broad and encompassing one, but including research and economic development and corporate partnerships and many other things along that line. But then there's also a subset of other entities that exist, one of which is, you can see down here in this gray box, is ASU Enterprise Partners. So ASU Enterprise Partners is a separate organization. We have separate emails, we have separate benefits. We are not technically employees of the university, but it is a family of organizations that exist to serve the university in various ways. But having that separation is advantageous for a number of reasons, including tax benefits, for enabling the university to do things that it can't as a public institution. And so within Enterprise Partners, there are a number of different entities. So you might have heard of SkySong Innovations, which is our tech transfer team, University Realty, which does all of our real estate work and real estate transactions, Realm Spark, which is kind of like our EdTech accelerator and EdTech VC firm. And then we also have the ASU Foundation, which I think is the largest of the Enterprise Partner entities. But broadly speaking, Enterprise Partners, works in service of the university. The university is our primary and only client. And so we create solutions and generate resources in various different ways that advance the reach and the charter of Arizona State University. So we're going to zoom into the ASU Foundation here for just a second, because that's where I am and that's where I've got the greatest context and insight, but I can, at a high level, speak to any of the other things on here if you do have questions about them. But the ASU Foundation, our mission is to build partnerships and relationships, uniting ideas, people, philanthropic support, and investments to advance ASU's goals for inclusion, student success, discovery with local and global impact. And so in practice, what this means is we are a separate 501c3 organization that accepts gifts and grants on behalf of the university, conferring a tax benefit to the people organizations, or entities who are donating to us, and then distributing that money to the university. So ASU Foundation is led by Gretchen Bulig, who's our president and CEO. And then we have a number of development frontline fundraisers, some who are unit-based, some who are on a central team, and I'll go more into that I believe on the next slide. This is very common for public institutions to have a separate foundation, again, because it enables the university to do things that it might otherwise not be able to do. So for example, legislators in Arizona might question why Arizona State University owns a building in downtown Los Angeles, or why it was in our interest to get a building in Washington, D.C. Well, those buildings are actually owned by ASU Foundation, and then the university leases them back from us because ASU Foundation can do those things. The ASU Foundation holds an endowment which recently just surpassed about $1.5 billion on behalf of the university, which generates annual returns that fund many of the things that happen across the institution. We have kind of four main goals that we say. So we serve, we engage, we innovate, and we care. And these are maybe, I guess, more of our values than our goals. But we exist to, again, across Enterprise Partners, we exist to serve the university in many different ways. And so across ASU Foundation and across Enterprise Partners, there are many different types of roles and people who can support fundraising and development. So if you look on the left-hand side where it says ASU Foundation Central Development Staff, what's highlighted in red, or I guess the red font, it says Foundation Development. That's where I am. And so we are part of the central team, which also includes donor relations, estate planning, corporate philanthropy, so that's gifts from corporations. Writing services is a team that helps with grant writing. We've got a research and prospect management team, which can help with identifying potential donors to support various initiatives based on alignment, and we'll talk about that in just a little while. And then we have college or unit-based development officers. So if you are in I'll just use Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College as an example. Ashley O'Brien is Senior Director for Development within the Teachers College. And so she then has a number of people who report to her who are also frontline fundraisers. supporting and bringing in funds for the Teachers College staff, faculty, dean, based on whatever their priorities are. And so they're working, again, with corporations, they're working with foundations, they're working with individuals, alumni, families, local nonprofits, anybody who might have an interest in supporting the Teachers College in that case. Or the Fulton Schools of Engineering has David Walls as its executive director of development, with Katie Martinez and Kyle and others on their team who are responsible for bringing in those funds to advance the work of their particular college and unit. Based on where you are seated in the university, your positioning, you likely have a frontline fundraiser who's assigned to your unit. Even entities like Biodesign have them. A couple that don't actually have a frontline fundraiser, and so they often come to the central team, are Ed Plus, is one. Enterprise Technology is another. Learning Enterprise, I've become their de facto development officer because they don't have one that's assigned just to them. And so, but wherever you are, you likely have one. And the ASU Foundation website, I can put this link in the chat in a little bit. But the ASU Foundation website spells out who the primary development contact is for each particular unit. And then across enterprise partners, we've got shared backend services like technology, finance, HR, general counsel, and whatnot that support all of the enterprise partners and organizations. But we're going to spend the most of our time today talking about foundations and foundation development, because that's where my area of expertise and specialty is. So we will continue on into the next section, which is understanding the philanthropic foundations and the funding landscape. So I just want to give you kind of a quick high-level overview of philanthropic giving that happens in the United States annually. So this is from 2022. And so you can see that just a hair under $500 billion were given by Americans to charity in that year. And then you can also see the breakdown of what percent came from individuals, by foundations, bequests, corporations, et cetera. And in the next slide, when we go to it in just a moment, you'll see the breakdown of where that funding actually went. And so why don't we go there now? The largest recipient of Americans' charitable contributions in 2022 was to religion and to religious organizations and organizations providing religious services. But you go on down the line and you can see how other areas have like the amount that other areas had received from charity in fiscal year 22 or calendar year 22. So let's give you a moment to take this in. If you have any questions, feel free to chime in. I will say both here and here that that charitable giving in the United States tends to be cyclical with the market, such that if the market is up, philanthropic giving tends to go up. If the market's down, philanthropic giving tends to go down. I'd say that there's still, it still happens and happens at a significant level, but just that like that people maybe tighten their wallets a little bit more when they are less confident in their long-term financial health, or the market is uncertain. So there's just there is some cyclicalness to giving. So then if we think about the charity to higher education, these are trends broadly, not just for ASU, but if you look at this, you can see that, alumni make up about a fifth, philanthropic foundations about a third, corporations about just over a sixth of giving to higher education. Non-alumni individuals is actually supposed to be pointed to a much smaller section there, but you can see the various trends about where funding for higher education comes. And next we'll see how that breaks down at the ASU level. So here, this NGC stands for New Gifts and Commitments, and that's the primary metric that we use at the ASU Foundation when talking about the money that we've raised. It's new gifts and commitments. So that could be a grant that we got. It could be somebody added ASU Foundation or ASU to their will or to their trust. It could be gifts in kind. There are many different ways, but it's new gifts and commitments is like the broad term, and this is kind of the metric that's used across foundations, fundraising foundations. And so at ASU, you can see the breakdown here that just about 40% of our new gifts and commitments come from other individuals. So that could be just people who are maybe not an alumni but have an affinity for the university, people who like the things that we're doing and want to invest with us. You see about a quarter comes from foundations. About a fifth, give or take, comes from corporations, alumni, parents, other organizations. So you can just see the approximate breakdown of how ASU and ASU Foundation's money comes in the door and from what donor type. So as we think about institutional donors and institutional funders, there are four main types. The first is what probably comes to mind when you think of philanthropic foundations, and those are independent foundations. These are entities with narrowly defined goals. They have particular giving areas that they want to support through their grant making. And so these are some of the biggest names in philanthropy, and they come in all shapes and sizes. So the biggest names like Gates, Walton, Rockefeller, the MacArthur Foundation, but then there are also there are tens of thousands of independent foundations in the country, and so some of them will have in the tens of thousands of dollars of assets. Some of them will have in the billions of dollars of assets. It just depends on their benefactors and how much they've given, but all of them have a different role to play. You think about an organization like the Gates Foundation. When they say something is a priority and they say we're going to put $1 billion behind this, that has significant weight in the market and can change and incentivize what institutions do, how they behave, how they act, what they prioritize based on where that money might on what the foundations care about. And so Gates, for example, has recently committed $1 billion to math, right, and math education. And so you're seeing now a lot of renewed focus on how do we improve our math proficiency, both at the K-12 level and in higher education. How do we make sure that math is not a barrier for women or learners of color who want to go into STEM fields? Like we know that among the math courses are among the biggest deterrents about why people don't go into STEM fields. So they want to improve math outcomes, and so they put $1 billion behind it, which has a lot of weight. And so the next type of institutional funder is a corporation or the corporate funder. And this can take a couple of different routes. It can be a foundation that's associated with the company. So there's Walmart Foundation, there's Google.org, there's APS Foundation, and these are essentially arms of the corporation that are designed and optimized to make charitable contributions and investments and into nonprofit organizations that are aligned with their giving areas. So Walmart, for example, here, they put a lot of money behind workforce development and workforce pathways for people working in retail jobs. Makes sense because Walmart is one of the largest retailers in the country. And so corporations are another type of institutional funder. There are also operating foundations. So think more around like museums. These are entities that will raise money, bring in money, get money, so that they can design, build, and run the programs themselves. So the Getty Trust is an example. Another one would be the Singleton Foundation, which cares a lot about financial literacy. So their benefactors have given them money, and they are now designing, building, and running programs themselves that promote financial literacy. So they might be called the Singleton Foundation, but that doesn't mean that they're a grant-making organization. And then the last are public charities. So think specific issue areas, geographic areas of focus, so Arizona Community Foundation, American Lung Association, and others. These are entities that are both, they do many things, but are often both raising money and grant making. So, when you give to the American Lung Association, they might then put some of that into a grant for research or a grant for outreach or a grant to support families who are dealing with lung cancer or whatever the case may be. Where I primarily spend the majority of my time is working with independent foundations. And that's where we're going to continue the conversation. So of these institutional funders, there are many reasons why they give. Oftentimes they are mission driven with identified areas of focus, things and topics that they care about. They tend to care about, and they come in many shapes and sizes. Like, as I mentioned, some of them care about research. And so they will fund research projects that are filling gaps in the literature or gaps in the field. There are many, and I'd say probably more, who care about like social impact. And so they're funding scholarships as a mechanism to achieve social impact. They're funding programs that help accomplish the goals that they've set forward. And so they're usually looking to fund measurable opportunities that typically can be scaled regionally, nationally, or globally. And so we can go more into that if somebody would like, but that is kind of the motivation behind it. They care about what they care about, and so they're looking for opportunities to further the impact that they can have with their money. They care about the same problems as us. It's just they have different levers to pull. Instead of actually designing, building, and running things, they're on the funding side and saying like, okay, well, we've got money, so how can we enable you to do this work better? So they tend to be very mission driven. There's some misconceptions about institutional donors. I just want to take a moment to dispel or to clear up. The first is that funding is easy to get. It's thought to be low-hanging fruit. And so when you see something like the Gates Foundation announce that their annual budget is, I believe, $9 billion for this coming year, meaning that they after salaries and everything else that they have to pay, but they have $9 billion to spend essentially this year. So people are like, wow, they've got so much money. Like, of course, we'll just ask them for money and they'll give it to us. I guess it's going to show them all at once. The reality is that it's actually quite and highly competitive. And so they are oftentimes putting out RFPs that will get and generate hundreds of applications. And then they're sifting through to find the one or two that will actually receive funding. Another misconception is that they care about ASU and our priorities. I think there might be some that do, but rather they care about what they care about. They care about their goals. They care about their issue areas. They care about their priorities. And so we have to find a way to be donor-centric. And how do we align with what they care about? So you might have a great idea and you might say, I want to go after this foundation, but if there's not alignment between what you're doing and what that foundation cares about, it's likely not going to be a match and likely wouldn't be a place that would provide funding. And so we have to be donor-centric when we think about putting something in front of them, like what's going to help them advance their goals. Another misconception is that funders are likely to provide operating support, long-term funding, endowment funding, when in reality, they tend to fund things that they can put in a box, that are very neat and tidy, that have a defined start date, that have a defined end date, have impact measures along the way, that have, that can fit just very neatly and tidily in a box. And so when it starts, when it ends, if it's been successful. There are some that will provide operating support, unrestricted funding, but generally I like to think about it like going to a bake sale. And so they're not just going to say, here's money for the bake sale. It's like, okay, well, here's the pies that we offer. Here are the brownies that we offer. Here are the cookies that we offer. And they're going to make a selection of which ones they want to buy. And so based on what their interests are. And then the last is that a misconception I want to share is that people often think about foundations as a source of frequent transformational gifts. And while we are seeing an increase of, not too far, and while we are seeing an increase in what we call like moonshot level philanthropy, so that's philanthropy at or above $10 million, those are few and far between. So MacArthur 100 million and change is probably one of the most notable examples, where they give $100 million to a program that fills a need. But those are few and far between. and they are extremely, extremely, extremely competitive. They require, significant track records of success, that they are ready to be scaled for some sort of major impact. And so while yes, transformational grants do happen, the vast majority are not transformational. So I just want to dispel those really quickly. All right, so next section, navigating philanthropic foundations. So this is essentially where me and I would say my team, but right now I'm a team of me, but where me and my team will come into play, or your unit-based development officer comes into play. Because there are different types of institutional funders, right? Like we can help you assess, like, is this a grant-making funder? Do they give to universities? Because there are some funders that don't fund universities. Do they fund in an area aligned with what you do? Like, we can help you assess some of those things. So the foundation development team or your unit development officer can assist with that. But really on my team, what we do is develop and maintain relationships with a portfolio of top national and regional foundations. So, for example, you might be familiar with Helios Education Foundation, for example. They're a local funder based in Phoenix. I'm what's called the relationship monitor for that funder. So I'm trying to track, all of the people at ASU who are both interested in and wanting to solicit Helios for support. And sometimes our role is playing a little bit of air traffic controller. So, like, if I know we have a big ask going in, this is hypothetical, but let's say we have a big ask going in front of Helios for $10 million. And another person wants to approach them for $300,000. I might be like, well, hold on for just a second. Like, let us work this one through the process, and then we don't want to overwhelm the funder with requests. And so we do play a little bit of air traffic controller. We look for, identify, and share institutional funding opportunities with relevant ASU teams and units. And so if a foundation puts out an RFP, I typically send that to a unit-based development officer, who then shares it with faculty and staff. We work with the university to develop strategies and investable concepts for institutional funders. So sometimes a funder will say, like, hey, I'm really interested in how we might, I'll use this since it's a recent example. How might we support the capacity of local nonprofits in Maricopa County? And so a foundation came to us with that question. How do we increase capacity for nonprofits in Maricopa County? And so then we had a conversation with a couple of different deans, a couple of different faculty members, and we pulled together a couple of ideas. We shared them with the foundation, and they were like, "Ooh, we're really interested in this one and this one. Can we pull on that thread and see where it leads?" So then we got back together with those teams and worked iteratively with both the funder and with the folks on the university side to create a proposal, to create a concept note that we then gave to the funder that helped them accomplish their goal of increasing capacity for Maricopa County nonprofits. And so we work to develop strategies and investable concepts for institutional funders. Then we'll also work with faculty, staff, and teams with proposal framing, proposal development, navigating the whole grant submission process. We can also help with charitable grant agreements. You can see a little picture of one over there on the right. And so there are kind of 5 main ways that we do this. Here we go. So one, and we're going to dive into each of these here in just a second, but the first is to help teams articulate and frame their concept. The next is assess teams' readiness to solicit foundation support. You might have a great idea, but it might not yet be ready. And so we can assess the readiness there. Identifying foundation prospects with aligned interest, goals, and priorities. Researching ASU relationships with funders and our key personnel to develop engagement strategies. We'll go into that in a second. Navigating the submission, award, and reporting process is the last one. So let's start there. One of the things that we do, again, is help teams articulate and frame their concept, because alignment is such an important part of successfully seeking funding. The framing and the way you describe a concept and help the funder to see that, yes, this helps them achieve their goals is really, really, really important. We often use a Heilmeyer catechism. He was the, I forget his first name, but last name Heilmeyer was the leader of DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Administration in the 1970s. And these were like the 8 questions that he put forward that basically forced people who had ideas to state them very clearly and be very straightforward about what the idea is and what they needed funding for. And so, but I think they provide a good guideline in terms of how we should think about talking about our ideas when working with foundations and with funders. What are you trying to do? How is it done today? And what are the limits of the current practice? What's new or novel or interesting about your approach, and why do you think it will be successful? If you run a pilot, do you have early evidence or data that tells you it's going to be successful? Why does it matter? Like, who cares if you're successful? Like, what difference will it make? What are the risks? How much will it cost? How long will it take? And then how will we know whether or not we've been successful? And so I think answering these 8 questions forms the basis of a really good proposal. You can Google Heilmeyer Catechism, find them. You can take a screenshot here. I can also share these slides with the team, and they can send them out. I know there's also going to be a recording that's going to be shared. But these are 8 good questions to help you just put forward your idea in a very straightforward way. And so when I'm working with teams to help them articulate and frame their concept, I often come back to these and make sure that it's like, that have we addressed and answered all of these? Because again, they form the basis of a good proposal. Assess teams' readiness to solicit foundation support. What's fundable? It's all about the fit. And so I'm going to play a quick video here. Let me just make sure I have this done correctly. 1 second. Share screen. Okay. So I'm just going to play this video really quickly. Here we go.
For organizations approaching us for the first time, generally we encourage you to first visit our website, read our funding guidelines and approach. The next step would be a letter of inquiry, and all of those get a screen by program staff, and if there's something that looks like it would be a fit for us, we will reach out to have an initial conversation.
Organizations that are approaching us for the very first time should really make sure that what they're doing, the programs and the projects that they're involved with, match up pretty closely with the programs that we support that's listed on our website. So we have 3 very specific grant-making areas, and their projects really align with those 3 areas.
I think grantees are most successful when they've done their homework in advance of a meeting. They know what the foundation is interested in funding. They've been to our website. They've looked at what our other grantees are doing. And then take the time in their first meeting to use it as an informational interview, to understand further what we're interested in, to understand what the state of our funding is, and frankly, what my needs as a program officer are in finding new opportunities to fund their work.
So no, it's a really quick video, but you heard from 3 different funders there, both a corporate funder and 2 independent foundations. That's really all about the fit. And so it wouldn't make sense if we approached American Express, which is a credit card financial company, and we said, hey, we've got this really great idea for ocean health. Like, it might be an amazing idea, it might be a revolutionary idea, a transformational idea even. But American Express might look at us and be like, okay, and so it's all about the fit. And so we can assess readiness to solicit foundation support and assess kind of the alignment between the concept that we want funded and then the funder that we're actually going after. Among the ways we can do this is looking, like, as they were saying, do your homework, read about the foundation. So this middle one right here, I believe this is from the Walton Family Foundation's website. And so they have 3 main areas: K-12 education, environment, primarily water, and then their home region of like Bentonville, Arkansas. And so again, if we came to them and said, hey, we've got this really cool idea for nursing, again, they might be like, well, how does that help our home region, our K-12 education, or the environment? We're probably not interested. You can, I believe this one down here is either from the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, or maybe, yeah, I think it's from the Moore Foundation. And so you can see what they care about. They've got patient care, the Bay Area, environmental conservation, science. Up here, this one is the Dorrance Family Foundation. So this is a family that's been very generous to ASU and ASU Foundation. And so you can see what they care about. You can see, I forget where this one comes from, but again, their websites, their annual reports often tell you what they care about and whether or not there's going to be good alignment there. The next way that we can support is identifying foundation prospects with aligned interest, goals, and priorities. So you might say, I've got this amazing idea, but I have no idea how to figure out who might be interested or who might want to fund it. And so we do have a prospect and research management team to whom we can submit research requests. They do have to come from internal to the ASU Foundation. So as a faculty or staff member on the university side, you can just reach out to them and say like, hey, give me a prospect list of people who fund in my area. You should work through either me or through your development officer to get that, and it can be done in coordination. So maybe we'll put one together and then we'll get together afterwards to figure out, okay, like who on this list do we know? Are there some here that we want to go after? Are any of these already supporters? But then we can kind of take that process as it comes. So right now, because I'm one person, I have limited capacity to do this myself. And so right now I'm usually outsourcing this to our prospect and research management team. But we can look for foundations that fund in your area, that fund in your geographic region, that provide the type of support that you need. And also you might want to think about foundations being able to provide things that are non-monetary support. They can provide convening power, they can provide sponsorship, they can provide connections to other grantees, they can provide kind of, depending on the profile, how high profile the foundation is, they can amplify your message, right? Like if the Gates Foundation were to share a post on LinkedIn or on some sort of social media, or like they have other ways that they can support beyond just money. People often think about them as monolithic and, oh, we go to them for money, but there are many ways that they might support. And so we can be creative. They can do in-kind support. They can donate equipment, they can donate expertise, they can donate volunteer hours. There are, again, lots of ways that they can support. And then there are a number of different research resources that can help with this. So Foundation Directory Online is probably the biggest and most well-known one of these. Everybody through their ASU library account has access to the Foundation Directory Online, or FDO. You can go there. I think it's just like lib.asu.edu, and then you click like databases, you go to F and it scroll down, and it will give you the instructions on how to get there. GuideStar and ProPublica are others that put forward, or that publish the IRS Forms 990, and I'll show you those in just a second. You can look at their grantee websites, their press releases, media, blog posts that the foundation itself has written, again, to help identify ones that might be interested in your particular area. I want to dial in really quickly on the IRS Forms 990, which looks like this. And I know that this is really small. Let me see if I can zoom in. I can't zoom in, so let me see it just because I want to showcase just a few things here. Zoom. So this one that I have open right now, or that I have right here, is for an organization based out of Florida called the DeLuca Foundation. And this is, I believe he was the founder or maybe a co-founder of Subway. And so he has put a lot of his money into his foundation, the DeLuca Foundation. The first place I always look right here is on the 990 is this number right here. This tells you essentially their net assets, how much are they valued at? And so this is from fiscal year or tax year 2019. But in 2019, they had just a hair under $700 million. The IRS does require that foundations give away 5% of their net assets annually. And so, you could expect from there that they're giving, round numbers here, approximately $35 million a year. You can then scroll down in that same form, and you can see where they've given that money to. So they gave All Florida Youth Orchestra $205,446. They gave Scholarship America $670,000. And so to kind of give you a sense of like the range of funding that they give. So whether like they might only make grants under 250,000, this would be a place to find that out. Or you might be like, wow, they make quite a few grants all above $1 million. Like this would be a really good opportunity for such and such initiative. And then you can also look at their impact reports to see the type of impact that they're having. So, this is from, again, the DeLuca Foundation, but they gave, money to Mercy Learning Center of Bridgeport that had an impact of serving 55 people. And so we did do a little bit of backwards mapping where we're like, okay, like if we wanted to go after them for some money, about how much per unit of impact do they have they funded in the past? I'm zooming in too much here. So we could say like, okay, they gave, I'm just making these numbers up, but if they gave Mercy Learning, $55,000 and with a projected served of 55 people, it's great. They're willing to spend $1,000 per unit of impact. Again, these are just like give you a sense. It's not an exact science, but to give you a sense of the foundation, what they care about, what they fund. The IRS Forms 990 are a really great place to gain some of that insight. One of the next things that we can do is research ASU relationships with funders or key personnel and develop engagement strategies. So we have and maintain a Salesforce database that logs contacts and communications and gifts and payments and pledges from both individuals, foundations, corporations, etc. And so we can look to see whether or to what extent somebody or an organization has supported, ASU in the past. We can do some relationship mapping to see like, okay, if we want to get this idea in front of this funder, how might we do that? Well, let's look for somebody at ASU who could maybe make a warm introduction. There's a common thing that happens in the foundation world where they say you go to their website, it might be the perfect fit. They fund right in your area. They give a lot of money in it. And so you really want to talk to them. And then you'll see a line that says, foundation does not accept unsolicited proposals. And so it's almost like a door slams in your face and I guess I can't approach them. Like they won't accept my unsolicited proposal. What I would say is unsolicited proposal, like when they say that, it doesn't mean no for good. It just means no for now, or we need a little bit more activity before we can actually talk to them about it. And so we can do some of the courting activities and we can help with some of those courting activities such that maybe they will invite us to submit a concept or to submit a proposal. And so just some ideas like, we can share a little blurb about what we're doing. We can invite them to an event. So, that maybe there's a movie screening that a unit or that a team is putting on, or a lecture series, and we can invite a program officer from that foundation to attend. And, by doing so, we have a conversation with them and maybe they learn about it. And once they see the alignment, they might invite a proposal. And so we can support with kind of those courting activities to move beyond that does not accept unsolicited proposals door that kind of feels like it's in our face sometimes. And then the last area that I want to spend a few moments is thinking about and talking about is how we help with navigating the submission, award, and reporting process. So, you might typically work with an RA, your research, from the research advancement team to do this. You might work with a development officer on this. But we can help with actually writing or editing or refining the proposal itself. Oftentimes they'll ask for information about ASU Foundation. Provide your current year financials, your last 2-year audited financials, provide the makeup of your board of directors, of your executive committee, give us your, so we have all that information and we can provide that as needed. We can submit proposals on others' behalf or sign off on their submission. We can track next steps. We work in coordination with the ORSPA, the Office of Research Sponsored Projects Administration, the Research Advancement Team, business operations teams as needed. We can help with communication with program officers, so people at the foundations who are actually responsible for making the grants. And then lastly, we can help with reporting reminders. And so those are the major areas that our team can help. I want to move now into our final section, which is questions and answers. So I've provided you with kind of a high-level overview of ASU Foundation, our structure, our philanthropic giving, and then the ways in which we can support in going after foundations. And so we can stop here and see what questions there are and use the last 10 minutes for anything that you would like to know. Let's see.